Hi everybody, Joey here again and welcome back. So today I'm going to show you guys how to build an algae scrubber. Now for those that are not aware of what an algae scrubber is, we're first going to talk about what it is and how it works. Now algae is actually typically viewed as a pest in the home aquarium. However, it's probably one of the best things for your aquarium. Why? Because it uses up everything that you don't want in your aquarium, like nitrates and phosphates. The downside is, for the most part, it's unsightly. With an algae scrubber, we're still going to grow algae, however, we're going to grow it in a concentrated area. This is going to be good for a fresh or a saltwater aquarium, because both have phosphates and nitrates. So the way a algae scrubber works is we're going to pump aquarium water around a concentrated patch of algae. That algae is going to act like a sponge and absorb nitrates and phosphates from your water. Now for the most part, algae scrubbers have been for people with sumps for the longest time. However, in this video, I'm going to show you how to build an algae scrubber that can go inside of your aquarium, and that's very, very easy to maintain and very cheap to build. It can also go in your sump. You're going to see in the video exactly what I mean. We're going to be able to build this entire algae scrubber, including the actual algae scrubber itself, the lighting, as well as the pump, for less than $25, probably closer to $20. So let's first get started with supplies. You're first going to need a basket of some sort. My suggestion is to buy a cheap basket like I did. I got a couple of these for $1 each, so $2 for each of these baskets. Now, these baskets are simply plastic and a dark color. The reason why we want a dark color, and if you can get black, is because we're going to shine light into that basket, and it's going to escape into the aquarium water as well, and slightly light your aquarium if it's not a dark plastic. You're also going to need a basic air stone. Now, the size of that air stone should be the length of the inside width of your basket. You're also going to need some zip ties. We'll also need some airline suction cups. These are pretty common and you can probably get them online or at your local fish store. You're also going to need a plastic knitting canvas. These are commonly available at a lot of fabric stores. You can get a sheet that is 2 feet by 1 feet for like about $1. You're also going to need a drill because we're going to need to drill holes in our basket. You're also going to need a light source to grow the algae. My suggestion is to use LED lighting or CFL lighting, just because they're low wattage, and we're going to need to have this on for upwards of 18 hours a day. So you're going to want to keep power consumption low. So to get started, you're first going to want to cut your basket in half almost. What I like to do is I cut the basket to the width of the air stone, about twice the size of the air stone itself. So you're left with a basket that's only a couple of inches thick, probably even 1 inch thick. Now in this example, it was only 1.5 inch thick. Next, you're going to want to drill the holes of where everything's going to go. Now I'm doing this at first because I know exactly how to put this together, and it's actually something that you might want to consider doing last. However, the hole placement is very straightforward. You're going to need holes in the sides as well as the tops. I'll explain why the holes are there later on in the video. The next step is preparing the knitting mesh. What you're going to want to do is cut that to the inner dimensions of your basket. However, you don't want to do it to the full length of the basket. You're going to want to leave at least a couple of inches of room to install the air stone. At the bottom and top of that knitting mesh, you're going to want to cut out some notches. The top notches are going to be so we can attach it to the top of the basket. The bottom notches are to attach it to the air stone. Attaching the air stone is next. We're going to take a couple of zip ties and insert them into those notches that we prepared earlier. We're going to wrap the zip tie around that air stone and center the knitting mesh on top of that air stone. Now we can install the knitting mesh and air stone into the basket itself. Using the top notches that we notched out earlier from the knitting mesh, we can take our zip ties and insert them into the holes that we drilled into the top of the basket. And they're just going to hold in there snugly. Not too tight, you do want some wiggle room so it can go back and forth for when you need to clean it. The air stone should hang about 1/4 inch from the bottom of the basket. So this is why it's important to kind of size out that knitting mesh before we start cutting it. However, it's cheap, so if you make mistakes, that's fine. Now we're going to use our suction cups and zip ties and attach those to the sides of the basket. This is what's going to hold the actual algae scrubber in place inside the aquarium. Finally, you can attach some airline hose, just some basic aquarium airline hose, and attach that to your pump. Okay, so now that you see how everything goes together, I wanted to show you that first before we rewind these steps. The very first thing you're going to want to do is once your mesh is cut out and ready and the basket is cut out and ready, you're going to want to sand those both down. You're going to want to sand the entire basket as well as the knitting mesh. You want to rough them up as much as you can. This is going to make the surface easier to adhere to for the algae. So we're pretty much done at this point. We can now go ahead and install it into the aquarium. Now you can place it on the back wall or side wall or wherever you want. You can hide it with some aquarium plants so you can't even see it within the aquarium. On the outside of the aquarium, you need to light it, and that's where the lighting is going to come into play here. Now for me, to keep costs very low, I just went out and got a cheap desk lamp. It was $7 with the bulb included. Luckily for me, the bulb was rated at a very low Kelvin, which is typically more ideal to grow algae with. Now I just would clamp this to the side of my stand somehow, or attach it somewhere along the side of the stand or even in the back of the stand in some way so that it points directly inside of the box. Your best option is going to put that light on a timer. That meaning it will come on and go off every day on its own. That way you don't forget it. Now ideally you're going to want to have that light on for about 16 hours a day. I know that sounds like a long time, but we want the algae within the scrubber to outcompete the algae that will be trying to grow within the aquarium. You might have to play with the lighting period to see what's going to be best for your aquarium though. So how does this work? Well, very simply. Within this algae scrubber, the algae is typically we're going to want it to grow on top of this mesh. As water is pumped in through this air stone, air is going to rise and cause water to flow over it, and ideally it'd be fresh water from the remaining of your aquarium. The air bubbles will exit out the top and fresh water will enter through the bottom. Over time, algae is going to start growing inside of this basket. Now, ideally we would like all the algae to be on just the mesh, but it doesn't really matter. It can grow everywhere within this basket. Once the algae gets too thick and starts to break off, what I suggest doing is removing it from your aquarium and simply scraping off the front and back with, say, a credit card or a driver's license, some plastic card that will enable you to scrape off that old algae while letting a good amount remain. That way you just have the youngest, healthiest algae on the scrubber itself. Getting the algae established on the actual algae scrubber is not going to take that long. Typically it could take 3 to 5 days till you start seeing algae on it. Now that's going to be largely dependent on the food source for the algae within your aquarium, like how much nitrates and phosphates you really have. Which brings up the subject, what size of an algae scrubber do I need for my aquarium? Well, algae is only going to be present in numbers that the food source allows it to be in, just like the beneficial bacteria within your filters. Now what I'm finding with these algae scrubbers is that a simple 4x4 square can easily handle up to a 50-gallon aquarium that's well stocked. However, this one's 4x8, so it'll probably handle up to a 100-gallon aquarium no problem. So what's the point of an algae scrubber? Well, the benefits are obvious. It's going to remove nitrates and phosphate from your water column. In turn, it's going to eliminate algae within the main aquarium. The other benefit is actually going to be on nitrates again. With no nitrates or very low nitrates in your aquarium, that eliminates the stress and growth inhibitors that it puts on your fish. And one of the reasons why we actually do our water changes. It will also help lower the amount of water changes you would typically do. So the benefits of an algae scrubber are obviously there. Anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and possibly got some ideas to apply to your own algae scrubber. Now I definitely want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.